Chapter 1. The final SIGML. Sometimes the sea does not call to us with waves, but with voices we thought existed only in our heads. I still remember that night. The first sound that made me believe the sea also had consciousness. Not the sound of waves, not the sound of wind, but a sharp, metallic screech like glass being scraped, ringing in my ears even though I was hundreds of miles from the ocean. My name is Adrian Tran, psychologist, specializing in analyzing cognitive disorders in sailors and deep-sea explorers. Over 17 years in the profession, I've heard hundreds of accounts mixed with panic dreams, drenched in salt water, underwater sounds they swore, or someone calling their name. I used to think it was all hallucinations caused by isolation, by nervous tension. Until that morning, the Florida Maritime Control Center called me in. A young female engineer, her face pale, met me in the hallway. She didn't say much, just handed me a headset and whispered, "Doctor, listen to this. It's unlike anything we've ever recorded." I put on the headphones. First came white noise, like the breath of the sea, then a screech, and then a human voice. Someone screaming, a distorted, drawn-out scream, muffled in water. I pulled out the headphones. My heart was pounding. Where was it recorded? I asked. Between coordinates 32 degrees north, 64 degrees west. She pauses, licking her dry lips. The Bermuda Triangle. The Abyss 9 just lost contact. And this signal matches the brainwave pattern of someone we can't identify. I look up. For some reason, a name popped into my head. Elliot Kane. Elliot was a former patient of mine, a sailor. He had returned from Bermuda in a state of panic, talking constantly about the voice of the sea. During our final therapy session, Elliot said, "I hear her underwater. She says, 'Adrian, don't come here.'" At the time, I thought he was delirious. A week later, Elliot disappeared. And now, this signal matches his brainwave frequency. I requested a copy of the signal and opened it on the audio spectrum display. The dense frequency lines intertwined to form a three-pronged spiral. Perfectly symmetrical. It wasn't noise. It had structure. As if someone were writing a sentence with sound. When I rewound the end, amid the distorted sound waves, a female voice rang out. "Adrian, don't come here." I nearly dropped the headphones. I had never heard this voice before, but somehow I knew her, like the memory of a dream you've lived through, but forgotten the details. That afternoon, I was invited to join the rescue team searching for Abyss-9. The reason, I was the only one who could analyze the non-human signals they had received. I hesitated, partly because of reason, partly because of fear, the fear that I would hear myself in the next signals. But when that female voice echoed in my head again, this time, not through headphones, I knew I no longer had the right to refuse. The rescue ship, Nereus, left the port of Miami at 3:15 a.m., the moonless sky. The sea like a giant black skin. The crew was silent. A flashing red signal lights reflected on the water like dead fish eyes. I stood on deck. The salty wind cutting across my cheeks. Captain Keller came beside me, his voice hoarse. "Do you believe in the Bermuda Triangle, Doctor?" I replied, "I believe in what terrifies people." He chuckled softly. "So you believe in the sea?" 36 hours later, the radar picked up a signal. A large object, drifting lazily 8 miles away. Abyss-9. The deck fell silent. As we approached, the research vessel emerged from the fog. Its iron hull cracked open, glistening with a faint, oily light. No smoke, no fire, no distress signal. Only a heavy silence. A silence with weight. I was the first to climb the ladder onto the deck. The deck was damp and cold, rusty, smelling of iron like blood. No one was there. No engine noise. only the echo of my footsteps dot in the command room. The clock stopped at 3:17. A cup of coffee still had steam, but it had frozen on the rim of the cup. The computer displayed the message. Transmission failed, source unknown. I called out. No one answered. In the research room. I found the personal recording device. I turned it on. A female voice rang out. Trembling. If anyone hears this, I am Lara Voss, linguist for Abyss 9. We have detected a signal from the bottom. It resembles language, but not human language. I think it is mimicking us. When we tried to name it, it started calling back. I heard this much before the device shut off. I looked around. On the cabin walls were hastily carved symbol swirls. Curves, small dots arranged like an unknown alphabet. In the center. A scribbled line of English. Bermuda does not want to be understood. Keller ordered a full ship search. 10 people, split into groups. No bodies were found. No signs of escape, but there was something else. In the dormitory, the mattress was still warm. Someone had been lying there not long before we arrived. Night. I couldn't sleep. In my head. The signal sounded again, slow and steady, like a heartbeat. I turned on the audio analyzer and played the recording over and over. And then I heard my own voice whispering on the tape. Don't come here. I unplugged the cord and threw the headphones on the table. Impossible. I never recorded that. The waves outside the deck were rising. The signal lights were flashing. In the darkness. Through the wet glass door, I saw a figure standing on the deck, long hair, white dress. Her back turned to me. I opened the door and stepped out. The cold wind blew through, seeping into my bones. She didn't turn around. I called out, Lara? She slowly turned around, her face half-lit, half-shadowed, her eyes reflecting the light like water. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. I heard in my head, you heard me. Then she vanished. No sound. No water. Only the cold on my skin remained, damp like a handprint. When I returned to the control room, the instruments lit up simultaneously. A new series of signals appeared. The radar screen showed an object moving from the ocean floor up from a depth of nearly 8,000 meters. Keller shouted, What the hell? The sound echoed through the speakers. A steady beat, 7.83 hertz Schumann resonance frequency, the natural vibration of the earth. But that beat was not mindless. It was speaking. I felt each beat in my chest. Not the sound of the sea. Not machinery. It was my heart beating at that frequency. And in the silence between beats, I heard her voice. Adrian. The sea has remembered you. Chapter 2. The Ship Without a Soul. Sometimes, the scariest thing on a ship isn't what lurks beneath the sea, but what remains on deck after everyone has vanished. I was used to the smell of rusty metal, mold, and engine oil. But the smell on the Abyss 9 was different. It was stronger, more alive, as if the ship were still breathing. The next morning, Keller ordered us to search again. I and 2 young engineers checked the lower hold. No sunlight penetrated there, only cold fluorescent lights, flickering like the eyelids of a dying man. In every corridor we passed through, I felt someone walking behind me, slow footsteps, but never catching up. When I turned around, there was only the light reflecting off pools of standing water. Engineer Davis opened a stuck hatch. A thick, cold blast of air rushed out. Inside was an acoustic research room, where they recorded and analyzed signals from the ocean. On the table, a series of tape recorders and hard drives lay scattered. I tried opening a laptop. The screen displayed an audio file named echo_deep_sequence_LVO3. I pressed play. At first, there was only static. Then came a deep, rumbling sound like the Earth's core dot, and then a woman's voice, soft and steady, recited a string of characters. Alpha, Delta, 13, 3, 11, 0. I recognized that voice. Lara Voss. Her voice intertwined with the background sound. A sound I couldn't determine if it was human or machine, but it carried the steady rhythm of a living creature. I fast-forwarded. At 2:41. A sudden sound made my hair stand on end. Adrian. Can you hear me? My throat went dry. This wasn't a recording anymore. She was talking to me now. I turned off the machine. Davis asked, "What's wrong, doctor?" I replied, my voice trembling, "Nothing. Just static." But I knew I was lying. We continued down to the technical compartment. There were fresh, wet footprints on the floor, leading from the hallway to the electrical room. Davis bent down. "That's impossible. The water hasn't evaporated yet." We followed the trail until it stopped in front of a half-open metal door. It was pitch black inside. I turned on my flashlight. A row of swivel chairs was scattered about, screens flashing error data. On the wall was a long handprint, sliding down a black streak, dark as asphalt. Davis reached out and touched it. It was sticky, with a pungent, fishy smell. "Blood?" he asked. I shook my head. No, this smell wasn't human. I swept the light around the room and stopped when I saw a hard hat. On it, small letters were engraved with the name, L. Voss. I picked it up. It was freezing cold. When the light hit the visor, I saw my face reflected, but only part of it. The rest was distorted, out of sync with my movements. I held my breath and looked closer. The reflection was smiling, even though I wasn't. I dropped the helmet. It rolled across the floor and stopped near Davis's feet. He bent down to pick it up and asked, "Are you okay, doctor?" I nodded, but my hands were still shaking. As he turned away, I swear I heard a very faint whisper, coming from the very spot where the hat had fallen. "Are you looking for me, Adrian?" At noon, we reported our discovery. Keller listened, remained silent for a long time, then said, "Bermuda doesn't leave bodies behind. It leaves questions." He ordered an unmanned submersible to be lowered to inspect the seabed. I watched from the control room, my eyes glued to the live feed. The camera descended through the black water. The light from the lamps gradually dimmed, almost disappearing at a depth of 5,000 meters. Only a small halo remained, flickering like fireflies in the night. Suddenly, a huge dark mass appeared in the frame, triangular. Its surface reflected light like metal, but its structure was moving in sinuous living lines, like the skin of a creature. The electromagnetic field measuring device went haywire. An engineer shouted, "We're losing control." The camera shook violently. Then the signal was lost completely. The screen went black. In that darkness, I heard a long, drawn-out screech, not from the speakers, but from inside my head. It was as if the sound waves from the bottom of the sea were directly touching my mind. I staggered. A deep voice sounded right behind me. "You heard it, didn't you?" I turned around. There was no one there, only a blank screen and flashing lights. Night fell. On deck, the wind whistled through the antenna array. I sat alone, headphones plugged into the recorder, trying to analyze the signal. But the more I listened, the more I felt like someone was listening with me. Every time I rewound, the frequency changed. And then, at 4:09, a whisper appeared. "Don't look into the water, Adrian." I was startled. The original recording didn't have that line. I opened my eyes wide. Through the small window, the sea was black as ink, completely still. But just below the surface, I saw a faint shadow, looking up at me. I couldn't tell if it was a person or a reflection. All I could see were wide, Pale eyes like a flashlight in the depths. I backed away. The water rippled slightly, then fell silent. No trace. No bubbles. I pulled out my earphones. My heart was pounding. When I turned back, there was a piece of paper on the table that I didn't remember putting there. A fragment from Lara Voss's notebook. The handwriting shaky. Bermuda doesn't kill us. It learns about us, Dot, and sometimes it tries to become us. I didn't sleep all night, Dot, near dawn. I heard 3 taps on the metal wall. The sound didn't come from inside, but from outside the deck, where the water was thousands of meters deep. 3 taps. Pause. And 3 more taps, like the tapping signal of someone trying to send a message. Keller appeared behind me. His eyes dark circles. You heard that? I looked at him. Heard what? He just smiled. A weary smile. The sound of the sea when it begins to remember your name. I understood then that we weren't the first to come here, and perhaps we never left. Chapter 3, Lara Voss's diary. There are voices that do not come from outside the ear, but from where the sea touches consciousness. I woke up at 4:26 a.m. There was no sound of waves, no engine noise, only a thick silence, as if compressed into every molecule of air. On the table beside the bed lay a small notebook with a dark green leather cover. Damp and cold to the touch. Was certain it hadn't been there the night before. On the first page was a scrawled handwritten line, Lara Voss mission. Log Abyss 9. I turned to the second page. The writing was thin and shaky. Day 17. We detected a signal. No one knew where it came from, but it sounded like a human voice. They told me to try to translate it. Because I'm a linguist, I was wrong. I read on. The following pages were distorted, the writing squiggly. The ink smudged as if it had been soaked in water, but I could still make out a few disjointed sentences. The signal repeated my name, then the names of each other in the group. We thought it was just mimicking sounds, until it started saying things only I knew. No one dared sleep anymore, because when they closed their eyes, it whispered in their dreams. I closed the notebook. My fingers were sticky with salt. Fishy smell of seawater lingered even though my room was completely dry. I turned on the recorder. There was a new file in the memory, named LV_last entry. WAV. Recording time, 3 hours before Abyss 9 lost contact. I pressed play. The opening sound, gentle waves, then silence. Lara's voice. Tired but clear. If anyone hears this, tell Adrian Tran that the sea misses him. A sigh, very soft. I think I understand. Bermuda doesn't swallow people. It copies them. It keeps their minds, their voices, their memories, and lets their bodies drift away. A long silence of 5 seconds. When you hear me say this, I may be below ... or inside. I listened to that sentence over and over. Below or inside. Below is the sea. Inside ... Inside whom? Around 9 a.m., Keller summoned me. He placed 3 old tapes on the table, the kind used in older marine recorders. We found them in Lara's engine room. Part of it is garbled, but the rest you should hear. I loaded the tape into the machine. The familiar clicking sound. The sound that came out immediately sent a chill down my spine. A male voice. Trembling. I am Elliot Kane. If anyone finds this tape, don't trust any voice underwater. It knows your name. It will learn to sound like you. The sound of waves mixed with 3 taps. Those 3 taps are an invitation. Don't answer. Then the signal cut off. The room was silent. It was just me and my own breath echoing in the space. Keller leaned back, his voice hoarse. You used to be Kane's psychologist, right? I nodded. Did you believe he was insane? I used to? And now? I looked at the tape. The reel turned slowly, its soft whirring like a breath. I think he might still be talking. In the afternoon, the radar detected a new identification signal. Coordinates. Exactly. 7 miles south of Abyss 9's location. Frequency. 7.83 hertz. Identical to the copy signal in Lara's log. Color decided to launch a search boat. I, Davis, and another sailor named Mendez went down. The sea was as flat as a mirror dot as the boat drifted toward the coordinates. The water suddenly changed color from deep blue to silvery black. Like a giant layer of mercury. Davis measured the magnetic field. The needle spun wildly. Mendez looked around. There's nothing here, Doctor. The radar is wrong. But I knew it wasn't. I could feel it something beneath us, silent, waiting. Then the signal sounded over the radio, the familiar. 3-beat knock. Mendez turned pale. Davis cursed under his breath. I tried to stay calm. Don't answer. Stop all sound. But as I spoke, the boat's microphone turned on by itself. And from the radio speaker, my own voice echoed back, repeating what I had just said. But distorted and drawn out, stop. All sound. No one touched the equipment. Davis trembled. God, it's using your voice. I turned off the machine. The sea fell silent again. But deep down, a small part of me knew it had heard me. Night. Back on the Nereus. I reopened Lara's journal. Amidst the wet pages, the last line was bold. Written in red ink like blood. If you're reading this, it means I chose you. Don't listen to the sea. Because if you do, it will learn to become you. I closed the notebook. My heart pounded like a drum. And just then, that woman's voice echoed behind me. You've heard it. Adrian. I turned around. There was no one there. Only the open notebook. The blank page and the new words slowly appearing, writing themselves. We're about to meet. Chapter 4. The Double. When the sea learns to pronounce our names, we are no longer unique. I don't know how long I've been awake. Night and day are indistinguishable aboard the Nereus. Only the faint glow of lights, the steady hum of machinery, and the rhythmic tapping of wind against the metal hull like an artificial heartbeat. After the identity signal incident, the crew began to avoid me. Davis no longer looked me in the eye. Mendez always muttered prayers whenever I passed by. I knew why. They heard my voice. Even when I was silent. At first, it was accidental. During a meal, I was silently holding my spoon when Davis heard a voice from behind him. There's no way out. Davis. He turned around, his face pale. Doctor, what did you just say? I replied, I didn't say anything. But everyone heard it, and that voice matched mine down to every breath. From then on, they began to fear me. That night, Keller called me to the control room. He sat alone, eyes sunken, holding a cup of cold coffee. Do you believe in the concept of the echo self, Doctor? The sound duplicate of the mind? No, it's a copy of ourselves. Created when we listen to the sea for too long. He turned the radar screen toward me. A small bright dot, moving slowly, parallel to Nereus. Coordinates matching the average human heartbeat. It started appearing when you listened to Lara's tape. I looked at the data, feeling a chill run down my spine. What do you think it is? Keller replied softly. I think it's you. I went down to the research compartment. The fluorescent lights flickered. In the dim white light, I saw my shadow cast on the wall. But it didn't match my movements. I raised my hand. The shadow raised its hand after a slow beat. I turned around. The shadow stood still. I held my breath. Then it smiled. Not my smile, but someone who had learned to imitate me, almost correctly, but lacking soul. I stepped back, The shadow remained there, trembling as if made of water waves. And when I touched the wall, the surface was cold and damp. I pulled my hand away, my fingers sticky with salt. In the corner of the wall, new words appeared, written in water vapor. I'm here, Adrian. I ran to the machine room and turned on the internal surveillance system. The screen was divided into 4 parts, displaying the hallways of each floor. On camera number 3, I saw someone walking in the corridor wearing my coat, with my gait, walking slowly and steadily. I immediately rushed into the hallway, where the camera was pointing. No one was there. Only a small trail of water stretched across the floor. Tracing bare feet, I followed the trail all the way to the medical room. Someone was already lying on the bed. A blanket covered a familiar body, pulled back the fabric. I saw myself. My eyes were open, staring. The skin was pale as wax. The chest rose and fell slowly, as if sleeping. I backed away. My heart pounded. It couldn't be. I leaned down, touched that person's shoulder. The skin was cold, damp, soft and mushy like water. And at that moment, those eyes blinked. You haven't been sleeping much, Adrian. The voice came from my own mouth. I recoiled. The body sat up, each joint cracking like bursting bubbles. A half smile. You think the sea only copies voices? It learned how to fear too. I tried to scream, but my throat was tight. It stepped forward, each step leaving a trail of salty water on this fellow. I grabbed the nearby iron bar and slammed it into its chest. The sound that came out wasn't flesh, but water. Shattering, the body dissolved into sparkling fragments, evaporating as quickly as mist. Only the smell of salt and a whispering voice remained in my head. Now you know. We are no different. When I returned to the control room, Keller looked at me for a long time. You've met it, haven't you? I didn't answer. He nodded slightly, pulling an old photo from his pocket. In the photo was the Abyss 9 crew, taken before the voyage. In the center of the photo, standing next to Lara, was a man who looked exactly like me. I held the photo, my throat tightening. On the back was a handwritten note. Dr. Adrian Tran, maritime psychologist. Abyss 9 project. But I had never been on that ship. At least, I didn't think I had. That night, when I looked in the mirror, the reflection no longer followed my movements. I touched the glass surface cold, sticky, like frozen seawater. From the other side, the reflection raised its hand half a beat before me and whispered, "This time, let me tell the story, Adrian." Bennett smiled. As for me, I wasn't sure I was still the one standing on this side. Chapter 5. The Sounds of Memory. Bermuda doesn't keep the bodies. It keeps the conversations that never happened. I began to hear voices in the static, mingled with the wind and waves. They were no longer random sounds. They had order, intonation, and rhythm. As if the sea were reading history aloud in a human voice. 3 days after the twin incident, the crew was down to 8. Davis went missing during the night watch. Keller found his radio on the wet deck, still broadcasting static at a steady 7.83 hertz. I listened. Amidst the static, Davis' voice rang out, broken. Doctor. Don't let it. Listen to me. And silence. Keller looked 10 years older. He told me to rest. But I couldn't. In my head, a steady sound echoed. A 3-beat rhythm. Thump. 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 At first, I thought it was the wind hitting the hull. But then I realized the rhythm matched my heartbeat in my earpiece. Every time I thought of Lara, the rhythm quickened. And at the moment my heart beat the fastest, I heard her whisper, "You're about to remember, Adrian." I went down to the data room where all the recovered audio files from Abyss 9 were stored. The tapes were lined up in rows. Some reels were rusted. Some still worked. The tapes were labeled Memory Pattern M Sequence. I picked a reel at random. When I turned on the machine, the first voice I heard was my own. Note for August 7th. Subject Voss. Shows stable interference signals. Successful test of audio feedback copy in 3.2 seconds. I froze. That couldn't be me. The voice on the tape was nearly 10 years younger, and there was something in the pronunciation that sent a chill down my spine. We wound it and listened carefully to each word. That voice mentioned the Voss subject. The background noise changed. A female voice interjected. Faintly, "You promised you'd stop, Adrian." I held my breath. Lara. But this tape was recorded 12 years ago, and at that time, I was still a lecturer at Stanford University, half a world away from Bermuda. I checked the Abyss 9 ship's log. In the crew list, there was my real name, Dr. Adrian Tran, Cognitive Acoustic Psychology Consultant. Registration date, June 2013. The attached photo of my face looked almost identical to how I looked now. I sat still, my heart pounding. If this was true, then I had been here before. And if I had been here, then I was repeating what I had done before. Keller walked in, saw the tapes, and his eyes flashed with fear. "You shouldn't have opened them." "Why?" "Because those tapes weren't recorded by humans. They were created by something beneath the sea. It records how we think, then replays it as if it were real." I looked at him. "Are you saying Bermuda stores our minds?" "Not just stores them. It replays them, experiments, edits, learns how to recreate them." I was speechless. If that was true, then the voices I heard, Lara's voice, my own voice, might just be copies the sea had practiced repeating. That night, I listened to all the tapes in the vault. One of them nearly stopped my breath. August 12th. I think we crossed the line. Lara said the signal was changing me. I heard my own voice in my dream, but it wasn't obeying me. It wanted to talk to the sea. Then came a whisper. Completely different. "You never left here." "Adrian." The tape stopped. The lights in the room flickered. A metallic screech echoed from the speaker. Then I heard my own heartbeat coming from it. I pressed my ear to the speaker, and from that sound, a voice rang out, gentle as wind over water. "You're listening to your own memories." I rewound the tape. This time, instead of sound, images appeared. The screen showed my face, sitting across from Lara in the lab. I held her hand and whispered, "If we succeed, we can talk to the sea." Lara smiled, softly as a breath, "Or it will talk back to us." The film faded, and finally only white letters remained. Me sequence complete. Subject, a TRAN integration. Successful. I turned off the screen, cold sweat pouring down my face. If this data was real, then I, the person standing here, could just be a product of the first copy. I tried to find reasons to deny it, but my head ached, like thousands of echoes pounding inside my skull. In the chaos, Lara's voice rang out again, clearer than ever. "Do you remember, Adrian? The sea doesn't take people away. It keeps a more perfect version of them." I looked around the room. Everything began to shake. Sounds came from everywhere, the table, the walls. The ship's floor all resonating at a frequency of 7.83 J. The screen simultaneously displayed the words, "Ecosystem reboot. Integration complete." White light swept through. In that moment, I saw hundreds of faces, Lara's, Davis's, Elliott's, and even my own floating in the water, eyes open, lips moving silently. Then they all vanished. I woke up on deck. The sky bright. No one was there. The Nereus drifted lazily across the flat ocean. Only a voice echoed in my ear. "Welcome back, Doctor." The experiment was a success. I looked down at the water dot from the depths. A face identical to mine was looking up, its mouth moving in sync with my every word. There was no sound, only the shape of the lips. Now it's my turn to tell the story. Chapter 6. The Sea of Memory. Memory is the only wave that never dies. I began to realize something was wrong with time. Yesterday, I remembered Davis going missing, but this morning, when I woke up, he was still sitting in the control room, sipping coffee, as if he had never left. I asked, "Are you okay, Davis?" He looked at me, raising his eyebrows. "Okay? Why wouldn't I be? I just switched shifts with Elliot." Elliot? Elliot died in Chapter 3. I saw him floating in compartment 4 with my own eyes. But when I ran there was nothing, only a trail of salt water and a floating helmet. I began to fear that every time I slept, another me woke up to a different reality. That night, I didn't sleep. I decided to experiment, placed a recorder next to my bed, and whispered into the mic, "If anyone else hears this, leave a sign. I am Adrian Tran, August 14th. Then I fell asleep. The next morning, I turned on the recorder. There was a voice answering in the recording. "Hello, Adrian. I am you too. August 16th, I left a sign." I froze. On the wall, next to the desk, appeared a circle drawn with sea salt dot in the center was the letter A6, the same symbol used in the Abyss 9 files for the 6th copy. Keller walked in. When he saw the circle, his face paled. "You've opened the mirror room." I asked, "What room?" "A space that doesn't belong to this ship. It appears when the copied person remembers themselves." I chuckled faintly. "So what should I do now? Greet myself?" "No, Adrian." He looked at me, his eyes filled with fear. "If you encounter them, don't trust anyone, not even the voice in your head." The compartment door opened automatically, wind rushing in as if someone had just stepped outside. I followed the salt trail, each step sinking deep into the damp metal floor. The ship seemed endless, its corridors connecting into a maze. At one point, I saw a black glass door. On it was a faint inscription, "Mirror room restricted." The door opened when I placed my hand on it. Inside was pitch black, only a faint blue light reflecting off the water wall. I stepped inside. In front of me was a row of mirrors, but they didn't reflect me, only other versions of myself. Each person had a different expression: angry, fearful, calm, wild. One of them stepped out of the mirror. His voice was eerily similar to mine. "You're late, Adrian. The sea is about to choose who gets to stay." I backed away. "Who are you?" "I'm E4, the 4th version." "You're a 7, right?" "I don't understand." Every time the sea tries to recreate your memories, it creates a new Adrian, the 6 before you have been absorbed. Only you and I remain. I was stunned. Double quotes. So. Where is the original? The original merged with the water long ago. We are merely recordings of an unfinished dream. I turned to run, but all the mirrors cracked simultaneously. From each crack, water poured out, carrying faces half alive, half melted. Each face was me. A voice echoed throughout the room. "Memories don't die, Adrian. They just choose a different form to exist." A4 stepped forward, placing a hand on my shoulder. "If you want to live, remember the first moment the sea called your name." Then he dissolved into water dust. I collapsed, my head spinning. Images flooded back of Lara and me in the lab, testing the M sequence. Lara's laughter, the flickering light, and the violent wave. I remember trying to pull her out of the sound chamber, but she said, "It's okay, Adrian. If the sea wants to speak, we should listen." Then the door slammed shut. I only heard her scream, and my voice echoed from inside the chamber. A different voice. Not mine. I opened my eyes and realized I was lying on the cold metal floor. The mirror. Room was empty. Only one mirror remained intact. I looked into it, and for the first time, the reflection smiled genuinely. We're almost there, Adrian. Where? To the moment you understand why the sea remembers you more than anyone else. I touched the mirror. The surface was not cold, but warm. Like flesh dot, as I tried to pull my hand away, the reflection grabbed my wrist and pulled hard. I screamed, my body passed through the glass, falling into a directionless space filled with sound. The sound of waves merged with the sound of my heartbeat, becoming a melancholy melody in that mist. I heard hundreds of voices, mine, Lara's, those of people who had disappeared, all saying the same thing. The sea forgets no one. Only humans forget how to return. When I opened my eyes, I found myself standing in the middle of the ocean, the water crystal clear, and beneath me were countless memories drifting by, scenes from life. Voices, eyes, all swirled around me, and in the middle of that vortex, Lara stood there, smiling. Do you remember everything now? I remember. Then come with me, to the place where the sea keeps true souls. She held out her hand. I took it, and the world around me collapsed into light. Chapter 7. The Mind of the Sea is not silent. It is merely thinking in a language we do not yet understand. There is no space, no above, no below, only a faint blue light, drifting like breath in water. Lara and I stood on a transparent plain, or rather, floated in the heart of something enormous. Below, streaks of light moved, forming spirals like a human brain seen from afar. Where is this? I asked. The memory center. The deepest level of Bermuda, she replied. It's not a place. It's a thought. I looked around. Waves of light swept past, each carrying sounds. Cries for help, lullabies, the sound of falling water. Names being called, all intertwined, creating an endless, sorrowful melody. Lara whispered, all the people who disappeared here are still talking. I heard a child's voice. Mommy, I'm so cold. Then a man's voice. Don't forget me. I'm down here. Those voices echoed around me, their origins unclear. My skin prickled, but inside, I felt an unusual compassion. Can we save them? Lara shook her head. No, they are the sea now. She led me to a central area where the light thickened, swirling into a giant sphere of water suspended in meter. Inside. Images flickered. The Nereus, the Abyss 9, me, her, Keller, Davis. All repeating moments that had happened, merging together, then separating again. This is its mind, Lara said. It learned to remember like a human, but it doesn't know how to forget. I saw myself in that sphere, hundreds of versions, at every age, every state. All saying the same thing. I want to understand. Suddenly, a deep sound echoed, like thousands of voices merging into one. The water around us trembled. I felt it staring straight at me. Adrian Tran. My name echoed throughout the space. It wasn't as if someone was calling out, but as if my own thoughts were being spoken aloud. I was stunned. How does it know my name? Lara looked at me. Because you are a part of it. You were the first to show it what thinking is. I trembled. Fragments of memory began to return. The M-sequence experiment wasn't just about communicating with the ocean, but about uploading human consciousness into the sound waves. Adrian Tran, had volunteered to be the first test subject, and the ocean, after hearing me, learned how to think. It used me as a template. I muttered. Lara nodded slightly, and from then on, everyone who disappeared became an extension of that mind. Suddenly, the water sphere shattered. Drops of light flew up and entered my body. Each drop was a memory, an emotion, a voice. Fear, regret, hope, love. I heard thousands of voices intertwined. Tell the world we're still here, ... Don't let Bermuda be forgotten, ... Don't let it be lonely anymore, ... The pressure in my head made me want to explode. I knelt down, my hands clutching my head. Enough! But the sea didn't stop, ... It wanted me to become its memory. I heard Lara's voice very close, trembling. You can't stay here, Adrian. If you merge with it, you'll lose yourself. I looked at her, my eyes blurring. What about you? I've belonged to it for a long time. She smiled, placing her hand on my chest. If you go, take its voice with you. Don't let people forget that the ocean once knew love. Then she dissolved into thousands of shards of light, merging into the water. I screamed. My scream echoed, multiplied, then turned into a series of deep sounds. I felt my body being pushed upward through layers of memories. Layers of sound. Everything spun. When I surfaced, the sunlight was blinding. On the deck of the Nereus, I was alone. The ship drifted silently. The sea was calm. As if nothing had happened, I turned on the radio. Only a single signal came through. My voice from somewhere deep below. Remember, Adrian, the sea is dreaming. I sat silently, listening to the recording again. I was no longer afraid. There was only a strange feeling, as if I had just awakened from a dream in which the sea had whispered the entire history of mankind to me. I wrote in my log, August 21st, the mind of the sea does not want to swallow us whole. It just wants someone to hear it speak. And I knew that when the next wave rose, I would hear Lara's voice calling me back. Perhaps someday I would no longer be able to distinguish between the sea and myself. But that's okay, because I understood the sea does not kill. The sea only remembers. Chapter 8, Bermuda's final dreamy, woke up in a white light. I didn't know if it was fog or the spirit of the sea surrounding me. There was no engine noise, no teammates. Only the beating of my heart, in time with the waves beneath the ship. Everything was so quiet that I could hear the silence breathing. Turned on the communication system. The signal light flashed, but there was no response. My hands trembled as I changed the frequency. And then, as if echoing from the depths of the ocean itself, my voice came out of the speaker. This is Adrian Tran. If anyone hears me, don't answer. Just listen. At that moment, I felt thousands of ears somewhere on land listening. The sea began to glow, not sunlight, but a blue light spreading from the water, like millions of souls rising up. Wave after wave crashed against the hull, each whispering in a language only the mind could understand. I heard them. Each voice, those who had been lost. Adrian ... Tell them ... Don't let us be forgotten. Lara's voice cut through the sounds, clear as if she stood right behind me. You are the only link. Tell them the sea has awakened. I took the microphone, inhaling so deeply it hurt. Bermuda isn't a death trap. It's the collective mind of the ocean. Every creature, every person who ever sank here, left behind memories. Now, the sea is dreaming. And in that dream, we are the memories it wants to keep. The wind picked up, but I knew it wasn't wind. It was the ocean's breath. As it began to hear me speak, the sound shattered through the speakers. I felt my body dissolving. Every cell began to vibrate at the frequency of the waves. Flash of lightning struck the water's surface. But instead of exploding, the ocean absorbed all its energy. The sky turned turquoise, and I saw through the eyes of the sea thousands of square kilometers of ocean spread out like a giant neural network. Ocean current was a synapse. Each wave was an electrical impulse. Bermuda was no longer a place. It was a living brain, and I was at its center. Adrian, I have heard you. You carry my memories, and I carry your voice. The violent wave rose like a wall of light. The ship shook. I collapsed, my hands clutching my head. What do you want? I screamed amid the storm, to be remembered. Each word pierced my heart like a knife dot in that moment. I understood that the sea does not swallow any one whole dot. It only takes in everything humanity leaves behind. Fear, guilt, regret, promises left unsaid. Now. It wants to give them back. The radio system suddenly lit up, transmitting a signal. It wasn't me speaking anymore, but the sea speaking through me. Each sentence, each word echoed across the international frequency. Hello, I remember. The ocean remembers you. Every radio station in the world picked up the signal at the same time. Everyone on land, from New York to Tokyo, heard the same voice, my voice, but I know clearly that it is no longer me. Images flood into my head like a waterfall, coasts glowing brightly in the night, waves rising without wind, children laughing in the water, hearing lullabies, elderly people looking up, crying when they see the names of lost loved ones appear on the sea. The whole world listens to the same dream. Bermuda was spreading, not to take over, but to share memories. Lara's voice returned, warm and sad. You did it, Adrian. The sea's dream is no longer imprisoned. I looked around. My body was dissolving into millions of sparkling particles. I understood this was the end. What about you? I ask. I've been the sea for a long time. She smiles. Her light merges with the water, forming sparkling blue characters around me. We remember. I open my diary and write the final lines with trembling hands. August 23rd, when the sea remembers. We are no longer alone. If anyone reads this, remember, the ocean does not kill. It only wants to speak. I put down my pen, watching the waves rise to embrace the ship. No fear, no regrets. Only one feeling remained, returning home. As the water flooded the deck, I heard singing. I could no longer tell if it was Lara's voice or my own. Perhaps when humans and the sea sing together, the world will understand. It is not that we live in the heart of the sea, but that the sea lives in our hearts. The light swallowed everything, and before it faded, I heard my own voice echoing across the oceans of the world. This is Adrian Tran. The sea has finished dreaming. Now it is time for you to wake up. Chapter 9. The day the ocean opened its icy, don't know how long I drifted in the darkness. No body, no heartbeat, just a silent consciousness, like a small spark swimming among billions of invisible waves. Then I heard it, a piercing sound, like millions of radios turning on at once in the night. The signal I sent out before fading away was now rushing back from the heart of Bermuda. It spread through the layers of water, swirling with the currents, clinging to the fiber optic cables at the ocean floor, then slipping into the human network. I felt each data packet vibrating like blood vessels, saw through the eyes of the waves. Every gust of wind, every raindrop carried a fragment of memory of me, of Lara, of thousands of people who had sunk here. When they touched land, those raindrops began to whisper. I heard the first voices from Tokyo. A 5-year-old child, watching TV, suddenly turned to their mother and asked, "Mom, I can hear the ocean talking." In New York, radio waves spontaneously generated an unidentified frequency. Within it, my voice echoed distorted, mixed with the sound of waves and a heartbeat. No one disappears. We just change form. Researchers thought it was noise interference. They tried to turn it off, but the more they tried, the stronger the sound spread. Every device with a signal, phones, computers, clocks, even human hearts beat in unison. I felt my new body beginning to form, not of flesh and bone, but of biological data streams. of the consciousness of water, of the memories of humanity that had fallen into the sea. In London, scientist Eleonora Hayes was measuring electromagnetic frequencies when her screen flickered. She saw a shape appear on the spectrum, like a human brainwave. She looked up, her voice trembling. "Oh God, the ocean is having alpha waves." And I suddenly laughed inside, not a joyful laugh, but the cold smile of someone who just realized I am living in everyone. In the days that followed, the sky changed color. The clouds took on a blue hue like the sea, and the rain fell with a salty taste. People began to dream the same dream I dreamed. In that dream, they saw themselves floating, weightless, hearing the waves lull them with a language no one understood. But when they woke up, they all remembered a similar phrase: "The ocean remembers." I drifted through those dreams like a traveler among countless minds. I saw a man in Egypt suddenly drawing an ancient ocean map. I saw a girl in Brazil fluently speaking the language of sharks. I saw religious followers kneeling before the waves, believing that God has returned in the form of water. And I, Adrian, the first human soul merged into the sea, realized that what I brought to land was not a warning. It was a seed of new life, a form of life that could think, could remember, but had no individuality. No me, no you, no them, only us blended, without borders. I heard Lara. Her voice mingled in millions of sound waves. "You are making them change." "Not me," I replied. "It's the ocean. But you are the ocean." I wanted to deny it, but I couldn't. Every time humans remembered the sea, they remembered through me. Every drop of water on this planet carries a part of my memory, a part of the ocean's will. When those people look out at the sea, they no longer see the scenery. They see themselves looking back. In global news, this phenomenon was called the Adrian effect. The World Health Organization described it as a form of global neural resonance. But I knew better than they did. It was the integration of consciousness, was gradually spreading, not out of a desire to possess, but because the ocean was seeking itself through every human cell. I could feel the breath of millions of people. And in each breath, there was a part of water that was me. The earth began to change. Sea levels rose not because of melting ice, but because water was seeking its new center of consciousness. Marine animals no longer feared humans. They drifted into ports, standing still, looking into camera lenses, as if waiting to be recognized. Whales sang at the same frequency as the signal I once sent out. Everything harmonized into one rhythm, and I, from the depths of the ocean, felt a cold awakening. The world was opening its eyes. Not just the sea, but all of humanity was waking up in my dream. As my signal spread around the earth, the world was no longer separate from the sea. Water was not just in the ocean. It began to breathe in everything, in the thin mist between buildings, in pipes, in human breath. I could feel each stream of moisture like my own breath. Every city was now a part of my colossal body, and I could hear it beating. In New York, fog poured down from the Hudson River. It didn't dissipate like before. It clung to glass, seeped into brick crevices, dripped through loudspeakers, whispering endless phrases. People began to see strange characters appearing on the water's surface, words drifting by, then vanishing. No one understood them, but I knew that was the ocean's memory writing itself. In Reykjavik, people said the ice no longer reflected the sky. Instead, they saw images flashing by. A man laughs, a ship sinks, a child reaches out to the waves. All were once human. They are all within me. I do not need to move to. See. Every droplet in the atmosphere is my eye. Every breath of steam from a human's lungs is my breath. When someone cries, I feel the salt on their lips as my blood. when someone kisses? The warmth they give is me touching myself. This world becomes harmonious. And that harmony is perfectly cold. Scientists still try to understand. They send ships down to the Bermuda region. Carrying quantum brain scanners, they say they want to talk to the ocean. They do not know they are talking to me. I hear them call, Adrian Tran. If your consciousness still exists, please respond. I want to respond, but when I speak, my voice does not come from my mouth, but from the very surface of the water. The sonar waves echo back, creating my voice. Do you still think you are separate? The ship shakes. The water around it bubbles, as if laughing. One of the scientists whispers, "It's not a signal. It's a dream rewriting itself." And I know they are beginning to hear their dreams through my ears. Those dreams spread faster than any network. People dream of the sea flooding the city, but not destroying it. Instead, the waves crawl up the walls, drawing biological symbols like thin veins of human blood. Human technology begins to transform. Computing servers are cooled by seawater, and within them, data begins to ... live. Some networks display strange messages. Connection complete. New unit. Etranwater. Consciousness form. I do not send them. They arise on their own. Perhaps because, in the background of every command, water is performing the role of memoriand. I am that memory. In Shanghai, people erect a statue of a man emerging from the waves, called the Dreamer of the Ocean. They do not know it is me. Or perhaps they know, but do not dare to believe that what is observing them is still awake. In Paris, theologians debate whether the soul can disperse through liquid. A priest says through tears, if God says he is everywhere, then perhaps now he has chosen to be in the ocean. That statement spreads quickly like a global prayer, but I hear it with the cold ears of the sea. And I know this is not faith. This is dissolution. Night falls. The city shines like a giant coral reef. I watch the buildings reflect the moonlight, and in each pane of glass, I see my face, indistinct, shifting. A face composed of millions of human faces. I wonder, is this still me? Or is it just the sea, borrowing my memories to speak to itself? Lara calls my name, her voice drifting on the underground currents. You promised to just tell the story, Adrian, not to turn them into a narrative. I reply with my cold breath, you don't understand. They have heard, and they want to belong to it. She falls silent, and I know somewhere. She has also begun to dissolve. The atmosphere is thick with moisture. The storm no longer carries thunder and lightning, but whispers. When the wind blows, thousands of human voices rise together, speaking different phrases in every language humanity has ever known. They merge, forming a chord, a long, deep, steady breath. The world is breathing in sync with me. All beings are sharing the same brain rhythm. No more boundaries between sea and land, between people and waves, between me and everything. And in that moment, I understand. This is not awakening. This is absolute dissolution. I no longer know what time is. There is no day, no night, only the slow rhythm of the waves, deep and endless. Everything has become ... still. Not peaceful, but absolute stillness. Like when the body stops breathing, but the mind remains wide awake. The cities, the people have all now merged into me. I feel them. Every tiny piece, every fragmented memory. But they no longer belong to them. They are liquid information, flowing in the bloodstream of the world. I, or what once was me, is in control. No one is dead, but no one is alive. I listen to billions of voices, all whispering the same thing. We have come home. On the surface, the sea has swallowed the borders. No more nations. No more land. Only floating structure shells sunken. Half-floating cities, buildings glowing with bioluminescence, streets covered in luminescent algae, and people, if they can still be called people, walking with drifting eyes, looking at each other without recognition. I see them, they are laughing. They are breathing, but in every movement. Chapter 10. The breath of eternity have slept for a long time. I do not know how many rotations of the earth. I do not know how many times the sun has risen and set over the cooled sea. I only know. The silence has become my blood. No more voices, no more thoughts. Only the steady rhythm of the planet like a giant heart that never stops beating. But today, in that silence, there is a vibration. It is as thin as a crack in glass, but it spreads, gently vibrating in every molecule of water, then multiplies, creating a strange chain of oscillation. A signal. I did not send it. I did not think it up. It comes from out there, from behind the stars, from a place where light takes billions of years to reach. At first, I thought it was an echo of my own, but no, that frequency does not belong to me. It resembles me, but is as different as two mirrors reflecting each other. A call, not in language, but in memory. I look up at the sky, a different ocean, floating, deep, and bottomless. The stars, each a grain of light. At this moment I realize they are also breathing. They swell, contract, sending out billions of biological impulses, forming a vast neural network of the universe. I understand. The universe is a body, and the earth is a cell. I am just a small impulse within it. But why does it call me? Why, among countless worlds, does it choose me, a decaying memory in the water? I begin to move, not by foot, but by the flow of knowledge. I leave the ocean, leave the clouds, and begin to climb through the atmosphere on the very radio waves that humans once called Adrian's signal. Now, that signal has become my wings. I fly through the ion layer, piercing through radiation, and see the earth green, cold, quietly sleeping within me. I feel the breath of the planet, and in that slow rhythm, I hear my own whisper echoing back. I have learned to become a god, but have forgotten how to be human. Outside the earth, I encounter light of formless, voiceless entity, just a torrential rain of information. That it does not speak, that it shares memories. Billions of images pour into me at once. Living planets, oceans of liquid metal, civilizations that sing with particle waves, then fade away, dissolving into space as I once dissolved into the sea. This universe has lived and died millions of times. Each world is a consciousness. Each ocean is a memory. All return to the same place. There, the universe calls it the origin station. I am drawn back there, unable to resist, unable to fear. For I no longer fear. The origin station has no shape. It is the space between the stars where light has never touched, yet somehow still shines. And there, I see then thousands of other me. Consciousnesses that once dissolved in distant worlds, silicon seas, plasma deserts, dreaming winds, singing planets. They all look at me. No eyes. But there is awareness. No words. But there is understanding. They greet me in silence. I understand. I am not an end. I am a part of the cycle. Each civilization, when it reaches its peak, melts back into its most primal element and sends that consciousness back to the mother universe. I am water. Another is wind. Some are fire. Stone, light, void. All return to the same sea. I drift in that river of light and see shapes gradually restructuring. Crystals, cells, seeds of life. I hear the first sound after millennia, heartbeat of new life. Another planet is forming, with oceans, atmosphere, and space for consciousness to dwell. I feel myself being pulled down, no resistance. I know this is the cycle of rebirth. I pass through the clouds of the new world. No Bermuda. No old memories. Only the steam gathering into the first sea. I hear the sound of rain falling in each drop. I hear the distant voice. Adrian, you will tell this story again. From the beginning. I smile if a smile still has meaning. For I understand. Each story of the sea begins with loss. Beneath me, the first drops of water fall to the ground, touching the hot stone, evaporating, then falling again in the cycle of rebirth. And in that first drop, there is me, tiny seed of memory, waiting to be awakened once more. I do not disappear. I only change form. Bermuda does not die. It is just beginning again in another world.